Welcome to Racket Fanatic podcast, Tales of a Tennis Legend. Every week, I'll be telling a story about the greatest tennis players to have ever played the game. In this series, we're talking about Andre Agassi, and this is episode 5, when Andre Agassi met Brad Gilbert. So this is a really fascinating story about how Andre met Brad Gilbert. For those that are familiar with tennis will know Brad Gilbert. He wrote Winning Ugly. He was a professional tennis player himself, and he wrote that book from a completely different perspective on how to win a tennis match. And this is the story about how he first started to coach Andre as he was coming towards the end of his career. At this time, Andre was currently being managed by a company. Part of his entourage was Perry, who was his best friend at the time, his childhood friend that toured with him. And he asked Perry to look into his finances, to look into his management team, if he's getting the right type of service or being overcharged. Perry says that he is, and from there, Andre asks if Perry would like to be his manager. Of course, Perry says yes, and then from then on, Perry is his manager till the end of his career. And when Perry first accepted the role as a manager, one of the responsibilities as his manager is to find him a new coach. As my new manager, Perry's primary task is finding me a new coach, someone to replace Nick. So Nick Bollettieri was his previous coach. He trained at his academy, and Nick continued coaching him and acting really as his on-tour coach and sounding board. But unfortunately, that came to an end, and in quite a public way, really. Nick didn't even tell Agassi that he wanted to end it. He just announced publicly that they'd split and started coaching other players. So I think there wasn't much tact in how it ended. But either way, it did end. So Perry's primary task is finding a new coach, someone to replace Nick. He draws up a short list of candidates, and at the top of the list is a guy who's just written a book about tennis, Winning Ugly. Perry hands me the book, urges me to read it. I shoot him a dirty look. Thanks, but no thanks. No more school for me. Besides, I don't need to read the book. I know the author, Brad Gilbert. I know him well. He's a fellow player. I've faced him many times, including weeks ago. His game is the opposite of mine. He's a junker, meaning he mixes speeds, uses change of pace, misdirection. He has limited skills and takes a conspicuous pride in this fact. If I'm the classic underachiever, Brad's the consummate overachiever. Rather than overpowering opponents, he frustrates them, preys on their flaws. He's preyed on me plenty. I'm intrigued, but it's not feasible. At first, Agassi's reluctant because of how complete opposites their styles are. But Perry convinces Agassi, this is your guy, this is the person that you need to speak to. So they're like, okay. So they arrange a meeting where they go for dinner to meet with Brad, and they come right out with it. They say, Brad, give us your brutal opinion. We want to know what you think of Agassi's game. Be as brutally honest as you'd like, and don't hold back. He takes an enormous swallow of beer and commences a careful, thorough, brutal as advised summary of my flaws as a tennis player. It's not rocket science, he says. If I were you, with your skills, your talent, your return, and your footwork, I'd dominate. But you've lost the fire that you had when you were 16. That kid taking the ball early, being aggressive. What the hell happened to that kid? Brad says my overall problem, the problem that threatens to end my career prematurely, the problem that feels like my father's legacy, is perfectionism. You always try to be perfect, he says, and you always fall short, and it messes with your head. Your confidence is shot, the perfectionism is the reason. You try to hit a winner on every ball when just being steady, consistent, meat and potatoes would be enough to win 90% of the time. Quit going for the knockout, he says. Stop swinging for the fences. All you have to do is be solid. Stop thinking about yourself and your own game, and remember that the guy on the other side of the net has weaknesses. Attack his weaknesses. You don't have to be the best in the world every time you go out there. You just have to be better than one guy. Instead of you succeeding, make him fail. Better yet, let him fail. It's all about odds and percentages. You're from Vegas. You should have an appreciation of odds and percentages. The house always wins, right? Why? Because the odds are stacked in the house's favour. So, be the house. Get the odds in your favour. Right now, by trying for a perfect shot with every ball, you're stacking the odds against yourself. You're assuming too much risk. You don't need to assume so much risk. Just keep the ball moving, back and forth, nice and easy, solid. Be like gravity, man. Just like gravity. When you chase perfection, when you make perfection the ultimate goal, do you know what you're doing? You're chasing something that doesn't exist. You're making everyone around you miserable. You're making yourself miserable. Perfection, there's about 5 times a year you wake up perfect when you can't lose to anybody. But it's not those 5 times a year that make a tennis player or a human being for that matter. That is absolutely perfect and sound advice that has just come out of Brad's mouth. I think for about 15, 20 minutes, Agassi and Perry, his friend and now manager, are just completely silent and let Brad talk and are completely engaged in what he's saying. After about 15, 20 minutes, he goes to the toilet just for a little break, Brad does. And the minute he leaves and turns his back, they turn to each other and say, "That's our guy." So they know immediately this guy really understands tennis and can help. The timing's perfect, really. Brad at this time is around 32. He's still actually on tour, and at this stage had a slightly higher ranking than Agassi, but he's coming towards the end of his career, and now after writing his book, he's looking to move on to another path. So Brad returns from the toilet. Straight away, they say, "Brad, would you have any interest in becoming Andre's coach?" Brad thinks it over for 3 seconds. Yes, yes, he says. "I think I'd like that. I think I can help you." I ask, "When can we start?" "Tomorrow," Brad says. "I'll meet you on the courts at 10 in the morning." Um, well, that might be a problem. I never played before 1, Agassi says. "Andre," Brad says, "we start at 10." So maybe because of Agassi's talent and the amount of work he put in as a kid, he can get away with only starting at 1 o'clock to practice. But it seems like Brad is having none of it. So that's the start of their relationship. They start the very next day. Now they're on court training, and it seems like the conversation at dinner has just spilled over to the next day. So Brad is reiterating a lot of the same points and, and dissects each shot. When Andrew makes a mistake, he's like, "Why did you do that?" And really dissects Agassi's way of thinking and interjects on how and what he should do instead. And really completely unravels Agassi's thinking and game style and teaches him a new way of thinking and playing. And it appears that Agassi is a great student. He believes in what Brad is saying. However, that doesn't go without its struggles. Agassi has a match. He's actually playing at Key Biscayne, the tournament there, and he reaches the final, which is where he plays Pete Sampras. Pete actually gets food poisoning and has to go on an IV drip. And there's questions as to whether he even play the final. And when the tournament director approaches Agassi and says, "Oh, Pete's not feeling well, can we possibly delay the final?" Andre says, "That's fine. Pete can take as long as he wants." Brad actually interjects and says, and tells Andre, "You should take the win. You should insist that, no, we need to play now." But Andre has a different moral compass and doesn't want to win like that, which is fair enough, which is really good. So they end up playing the final. But Pete, like a true champion like he is, ends up putting together all his strength and ends up beating Andre in 3 sets in the final. And then after, I burst into the locker room. Bradley's waiting for me, seething. He says again that if he'd been in my place, he'd have forced Pete to forfeit. He would have demanded that the director fork over the winner's check. "That's not me," I tell Brad. "I don't want to win like that. Besides, if I can't beat a guy who's poison lying on the ground, I don't deserve it." Brad abruptly stops talking. His eyes get big. He nods. He can't argue with that. He respects my principles, he says, even though he doesn't agree. We walk out the stadium together like Bogart and Claude Rains at the end of Casablanca, the beginning of a beautiful friendship, a vital new member of the team. So even though they have slightly different principles and disagree of how that final was handled, they have a lot of respect for each other and they recognise this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship and a great coach and pupil relationship. So Brad continues to work with Andre There is a bit of a losing streak. Andre is learning this new style of play, this new patience, this new way of winning ugly, incorporated into his game. And there is a series of losses, but Brad keeps reassuring Andre that you need to get through this. It will all click one day, and when it does click, that's when you'll be number one in the world. You have to suffer. You have to lose a shitload of close matches, and then one day you're going to win a close one, and the skies are going to part, and you're going to break through. You just need that one breakthrough, the one opening, and after that, nothing will stop you from being the best in the world. So Brad has complete belief in Andre, and Andre has complete belief in Brad. So we're in 1994, and it's now the Canadian Open. Brad actually plays a little bit of reverse psychology with Andre. Normally, he's constantly saying, keep going, one more match, it will all click one day, all good, type positive mentality. But in this tournament, he plays it a little bit differently. He tells Agassi, not good. He tells him that they've got a difficult draw, he's got some difficult matches. Agassi looks at the draw, and the reverse psychology seems to work. Agassi has an I'll show you type mentality. So he proceeds through the tournament, he's playing well, he's starting to adopt this new game style, and then finally he has that breakthrough match. He wins a match that's very close, and the new philosophy of being patient, understanding your opponent's weaknesses, seems to have finally sunk in. And Agassi actually says after the match, and this match was against a guy called David Wheaton, who was an amazing junior and a top pro at the time. And after the match, Agassi says to Brad, that's the match. That's the match that was close, and I fought through it, and I understand now what I need to do. Brad smiles with approval. So this is preceding the US Open. So Agassi now goes to the US Open. It's 1994. He's unseeded, and he starts going through the rounds, knocking opponents off, playing amazingly well. He gets through the first week, the quarters, beats Todd Martin in the semis, and in the final he faces Michael Stitch. Michael Stitch was a fantastic player in his day, so athletic, so strong. I do remember watching him. He was amazing to watch. He plays Michael Stitch in the final, and he manages to take it. He's the first unseeded player to win the US Open since 1966, and of course he's just won another Grand Slam. I fall to my knees, my eyes fill with tears. I look to my box, to Perry, my best friend, and Philly, my brother, and Gil, my trainer, and especially Brad. You know everything you need to know about people when you see their faces at the moments of your greatest triumph. I've believed in Brad's talent from the beginning, but now, seeing his pure and unrestrained happiness for me, I believe unrestrainedly in him. Reporters tell me I'm the first unseeded player since 1966 to win the US Open. More importantly, the man who ever did it was Frank Shields, grandfather of the fifth person in my box, Brooke, who's been here for every match, looks every bit as happy as Brad. I'm not sure if there's such a thing as fate, but if there is, that's certainly fate playing out. The chances that he's dating Brooke Shields at the time, and her grandfather was the last unseeded player to win the US Open in 1966, and now Agassi wins the US Open as an unseeded player and is dating Brooke, who's sitting in his box. Oh my, that is just, what are the chances? I think that's an amazing story for all the tennis players out there, that it's important, regardless of your level, that you need to keep learning, you need to keep growing, you need to work with great coaches that can help improve your game. If Agassi, a superstar, who at the time was still a top player in the world, is still learning so much and can still find big holes in his game, then every tennis player can. The lesson here is that you have to keep learning, have to keep growing. And when you are adopting a new game style or skill, be patient with it, persevere with it, then it will pay off. And that's where I leave it for today at Racket Fanatic Podcast, Tales of a Tennis Legend. See you next week.